All right, we're back. It is COMP305. That's Game Programming 1. I'll be okay. Game Programming 1 here at Centennial. And it's Winter 2016, Week 10, Part 3. I'm going to focus this part on discussing things for the final project. So we've already talked about a final project in COMP392. And this will be a little bit the same. I'm also going to finish off what we were doing last day. Last day, just to give you a bit of a preview, we had the we did some raid casting and we did some impacts, right? So when we play, let me just do this again. We play and my mouse is frozen. When we play, we can kind of get the different impacts, right? And then we did this last day. We also did the explosion, right? So we did those kind of things. Those are the things we did. Where we kind of had a very smaller maze, and we can do the difference between hitting something and then not hitting anything, right? So, sorry about this. Just my screen is not maximized, so it's awesome. So no hit and then hit, right? Those kind of things are the things we want to do. And then also, what I wanted to do, we did last day, is also create a death plane, where if I land, right, then I get reset. I wanted to reset me back to where I was. So here's where I am on the death plane. When I hit the death plane, I wanted to reset me back up there. So we're kind of working on that. Not quite complete from last day, but the death plane is an invisible plane that right now I can walk around on, right? But eventually what we're going to do is we're going to take it away and reset the player and make sure he has a proper score and all that kind of stuff by referencing everything correctly. So those are the things we're doing. You notice that there's a null reference exception right now because of the way we're referencing our game controller script, and we're going to fix that by kind of making a reference by tag name. So we're going to get all that done today. I also want to start off some basic pathfinding for enemies. So I'll create a basic enemy that I'll put on the map, right? And we'll see how it can find us if it can. And we can talk about some things, different kind of ways of creating enemies in a very simple way, right? By using built-in tools that are part of every vector. So vector 3 objects have different ways of creating a direction, and we're going to talk about those things. Also, basic pathfinding is by creating a nav mesh and a nav mesh agent in order for us to create that. And once we do, we'll probably build that over the next couple of days. So we'll talk about those things. I also want to talk about administrative things today with you. One of them is beyond the final project, which I'm going to start talking about right now. I also want to talk about what we're going to be doing over the next few weeks, because things are going to be a little bit different, right? Because now that we're going to bring in the final project, there's going to be less stuff I'm going to be talking about, less teaching throughout the time. So instead of teaching for 2 hours through the whole period, what we're going to be doing is I'll teach for the first hour, and the second hour I want to preview your work. So I'm looking for you to come in. I know some people don't like coming into class, right? But I'm hoping that you'll come into class. And then what I'll do is I want to take a look at your work before you submit it, if I can, right? So I can give you some feedback and also sit with you and do some one-on-one marking, right? I would like to try and do some one-on-one marking with as many of you as I can get to. There might be some of you I can't get to, just from a time perspective, but I'll try and mark as much as I can when I'm with you, right? So that way you're up to date with your feedback, you understand where you stand and things you can improve, and those kind of things, right? So I'll start doing that. And also from a team perspective, I'll mark the team. So some of the things you're going to do together as a project, I'll mark those things too. And so as we get towards the end of semester, we'll have a bunch of things going on. All right, so we're going to change the pace a little bit. Okay, so we've got this piece here. What I'd like to do is let's move into right into the assignment or final project for this semester. All right, so the final project is up on eCentennial for you. So if I take a look at what mine looks like, again, it's very similar to the one I gave on for COMP392. This one is a single-player Unity game. So single-player Unity game, notice that doesn't say 3D. And I kind of gave you guys some examples of single-player Unity games for let's say assignment number 1, assignment number 2, and even assignment number 3. After this video, I'll stop the video. I'm not sure if I can record it and if the recording will live, but I can probably give a little bit of some examples of some final projects that were submitted by students from last semester. And they're pretty cool. Some of them are really good, what they've kind of created, right? So let's talk about this. So your final project, these are the due dates, but let's talk about how you're going to get this done. So again, either alone or as a team of up to 3. This is the change from last semester. I was allowing 2 last semester. I'm going to allow 3 this semester, only because I want you to be able to combine with other people and be able to produce something with a bit of horsepower, right, to get things done. Make it fun, right? I don't want it to be so much work that it's too much work for you, because it is a project. And there's other stuff going on, other projects I'm giving you at the same time. So because of that, I want to kind of lighten the load a little bit and recommend that you can work with up to 3 people together. 3 people together, right? Up to 3. So you will create an original 2D or 3D Unity game. You just decide what you want to do. It's for solo play. So you're not going to make a multiplayer game here. It's only a single player game you're making. The game can be a scrolling game, a platform game, stuff we've talked about before. A tower defense game, which we haven't really gone into, but you can find out what that is. A first-person shooter, a third-person adventure game. I would rather, again, I'm going to warn you about third-person. It's much more difficult to make third-person perspective games than first-person games because of the dreaded, when you get close to an enemy. If an enemy's following you and he's following you right in front of the camera, depending on what your third-person perspective is, it can block your character. Like, actually, you won't be able to see your original character. The enemy will be right in front of you, right? Because of the way it's falling. If you run away from a character and the enemy's falling behind you, it's going to be right in front of the camera, right? So depending on how you position the third-person camera, it can be very tricky, and that's why I don't recommend. That's just one problem. I don't recommend third-person. It's more complex than a first-person perspective, because first-person perspective, there's no body really, and the camera's right there in front of you, so it's easy for you to to change facings and look at another the enemy and so on, and other things like triggering colliders and things like firing bullets and all that kind of stuff with rate casting and so on is a little bit easier when you can use the camera compared to when what the character is looking at. That's totally different, right? So so these kind of things make a third-person perspective a little bit more challenging, right? So I don't recommend. You could also make another game that I haven't mentioned here, but I want to approve it. So if there's something that's way out of whack, that's cool. The thing that I will not approve, that I will not recommend at all, is puzzle games again. And I talked about this actually in COMP397. I'm talking about it in COMP392. I'll talk about it in every single game. Why? You might think, well, puzzle games are easy, Tom, right? And no, they're not. Right? Actually, to make a really cool puzzle game, it takes a lot of effort, more logic than UI, and you know what? This is not the game we're making here. We're making something that moves around. There's more of an arcade type style game. Puzzle games are a little bit more static, and they take a lot of testing. You have to have a very clear understanding about how to create a rule set, and everything else for puzzle games in order for them to be challenging, and all that kind of stuff, and then not too challenging. And same thing, one thing I won't accept for this type of game, because we're going to make 3 game levels, or easy, medium, hard. I'm not going to accept easy, medium, hard for this type of thing. It'll be level 1, level 2, level 3. And the reason for this is because easy, medium, hard, what people do is they speed things up, add too many enemies, those kind of things. It's the exact same level. They want to regurgitate to me 3 times, and they just want to add more enemies or make it faster. And it's the wrong thing. Play balance goes out the window. It becomes too challenging or too difficult and unplayable, and most people don't know how to balance that stuff off. So those things I won't accept that either. So it's got to be 3 different levels. Each level has its own goal, right? A different shape to the level. I don't want it to be the same level with blue sky, red sky, green sky, different levels, right? It has to be different levels completely, right? So I know I keep saying this over and over again, but if I don't say it over and over again, someone's going to submit this thing to me, right? And I also, one more thing, please don't give me your maze. Right? I don't want this, my Blender maze that I made. Don't give it back to me. Don't make a barrel shooting game, all right, with Blender, with Unity, and hand it in and say, here's my game. It's a barrel shooting game. That's the game. I'm not going to accept that. Please do not give that. Don't give it to me first time at 3, and I don't want it for my final project. That is like the wrong thing to make for me, because it's just basically you haven't done anything. You just watched the tutorials and just done exactly what I've done. What I'm giving you to do is an example of what you can do. You have to make your own game, all right? Just like, I don't expect to get Mail Pilot back. If I do Mail Pilot on the side scroller, please don't give me Mail Pilot back, right? And same thing with my platformer. Don't give me my assets back. All the assets have got to be your own. They've got to be unique, Now you can get them from any source you want. If you want to get them from the asset store, no problem. If you want to, download them from other sources online, there's tons of 3D online websites that can give you 3D assets, and they're free, right? So you can use them, and some of them are okay for other uses. We're not using it for commercial purposes, so it's okay. But please make sure that they're your own assets. One thing I say in here is that you're making your own game. It doesn't mean it has to be completely unique. If you want to copy a game that's already out there, and you want to kind of make a game again, like a remake, that's okay. Like for example, some people want to make something like a a kind of a shooter game, something like a CS:GO type game, for a single player. Go ahead, all the power to you, right? Good luck. You can probably find most of the textures online too for CS:GO, right? But again, it's got to be something that's realistic and something that you're going to make, that you can make in 3 or 4 weeks. Let's talk about the time frame. So you're going to make a game, again, either 2D or 3D, the first week, so next week on Friday by midnight, right? That's April the 1st. No joke. Again, like I said, like last time, right? First draft of your external document is due, and basically your game concept, your menu scene, how to make it. We have to kind of make a menu scene of how to go from, your instruction screen to your different scenes. We have to talk about how to make a menu scene, your game structure itself, and your GitHub link. All those things are due by next week on Friday. So again, use this video as to, if you have a question about what's due and when is it due, this video here, this details everything you need for your final project. Okay, that is worth 5% of your final grade. So the whole project is worth 30, but that first part, you and your partner or partners have to give in. And again, you'll share the marks, whatever your mark you get, they get, right? That'll be due this Friday, or next Friday, I mean. Part 2, that's the first working level, and it'll be your first working level, your basic game mechanics, your scoring system, all that stuff has to be ready to run, and any modifications you need to make have to be ready to go by Friday number 2. That would be on the week 12th, Friday, April the 8th, all right, as an example, by midnight. Now, here's a great thing. If you already have, let's say, for example, you love your assignment number 3. You've been working on assignment number 3 over the last few weeks, and you're working with a partner that you like, let's say, right? And you want to keep that partner, and you want to keep working on assignment number 3, the same one you've been working with with them for assignment 3, and you want to continue working on that one, make level 2, level 3. Basically, part 2 is done, right? Really, at the end of the day. You just have to, all I need for you to do is retweak it, because it needs to be its own level, a separate scene. So it's not going to have a game over button, and all that stuff has to be stripped away from it, because this game is going to have a game over scene, right? So more or less you can hand in your first working level would be your assignment, your output from assignment 3 if it's complete, and any modifications you want to make, if you want to make some modifications to it. So really, your first level is done. If you're smart, you might want to use something that you've been working on with your partner. And if you and your partner are working on it, really, you don't have a lot to do for part 1 and part 2. Part 1, I'm really looking for a wireframe of all your levels, not just your first one. If you've already got that one done, think about level 2 and level 3. What are they going to look like? And I want you to put those into there, right? So that's part 2. Part 2 is kind of easy. This is where it gets a little bit more challenging. Part 3. So you and your partners, 1 or more, right? For part 3, for the 3rd week, this would be like due Friday, April 15th, right? As an example, second last week of class, so week 13. You're going to be creating level 2 and level 3. Level 2 and level 3 have to be different levels, right? Again, they're due at the same time. Why? Because that way, all you're doing is you're taking your first level concept and extending it. You're just taking the same, maybe your same player prefab, and you're putting it back into play. You're carrying forward your score. We'll talk about these things, how to carry forward a score from one level to the other, right? Because remember, when you make a new level, your score is gone. It's wiped. How do you pass information from one scene to another scene? These are things we've talked about for Unity, right? So that's due on week 3. Week 4 is your finished product. Notice it's not due on a Friday. It's due on a Wednesday, right? And the reason for that is your last day of class is Wednesday, right? So I'm not making it on Friday that week. It's due the Wednesday at midnight. Now, I fully expect there's going to be a lot of people that are not going to be in class that day. But for the people that are there that day, we're going to run some other kind of activity. I'm not going to say what, all right? But that's the day we're going to kind of relax, right? Twice, yeah, I know. And we're going to run some other kind of activity, and it's optional if you want to attend. I was going to include a final presentation for this one and for the other one. I think I'm going to take those final presentation pieces out for now. Right now we're out of 88% for this class, but there's opportunities for us over the next few weeks because I'm going to be talking about a couple things here. One thing is I'm going to be talking about this. I'm going to do a mini map. I'm going to talk about how to make a mini map, right? And I'm probably going to have a whole lab around creating a mini map. So that's going to be like another 2% we're going to add in there. So that's 2. There's another 10% that's floating around there. And what I might do is, again, take that 10% and absorb it around the course itself, right? As opposed to adding another presentation. Now, this is good and bad, right? And the same thing for COMP392. The good thing is you don't have a final presentation. There's no final exam. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do a final. I'm not going to kill you guys with the final exam in any course that I do. So if you got a course with me today, this semester, no final exam. I'm not going to do it for COMP397. I'm not going to do it for, for COMP392. I'm not going to do it for COMP305. We'll not have final exams that week. But what I will expect you guys to do is get your all your work done, right? So on time, right? So you're not going to study for my exams, but there's going to be work that you have to do. So if you're taking two courses from me, and some of you are, 2 courses, you guys are taking 2 courses, that means you're going to have 2 less exams this semester, which is good. Give you a chance to study the other stuff and give your, your mind to rest a little bit. But on the downside, you'll have 2 big projects from me, from each courses. That's the bad side. So in order for me to facilitate that, so you don't have to study for your exams or anything like that, I'm going to give you a chance to hand things in for Wednesday, right? Now on the Wednesday, what I like to try and do is maybe I have a chance to look at some of your work. Like I'd like to see, I'm going to be looking at anyway, like throughout the whole time over the next several weeks, or a few weeks, we're going to be looking at stuff together. I want to see what your concept is. And then it'll give me a chance to correct your course. If you get a problem or you're heading down a bad road, you're writing yourself into a corner, something like that with your code, we can try and fix that, right? So please don't skip classes the next few weeks. There's going to be opportunities for us to help, to help each other out. Yeah. Right now, like basically coming up these next few weeks, I'm going to sit with you guys from a grading perspective, one-on-one and with your team, and grade everything right with you in front of you, right? So here it is. Here's your grade. Here's why I see what I see. Let's take a look at this together. What do you think? And kind of it'll be a conversation as opposed to me just giving you a grade, right? So then say, hey, here, what do you think? So you see this is what I was expecting. This is what you gave. Here's your mark, right? And that kind of stuff. And it'll be better feedback than me just giving you a blank mark and putting it up on Dropbox. It'll serve a couple purposes, and the great thing is it'll give you momentum to move forward, right, and all that kind of stuff. Some of you have had some funky midterm exams, I'll say that. Like some people did really well, other people did pretty poor, right? So that extra 10% that we got floating around might be able to help us out to alleviate some of that. And I'll think about some creative ways over the next few weeks to kind of incorporate that 10% or so into our plan. Okay, so just letting you know how things are going to go, right? So no final exam, but this is the schedule. One thing that's not listed here is that each week, what I'm expecting you to do is update your external game document. So your first draft, like it says here, is due part 1. And then for part 2, part 3, and part 4, I expect you to change your external document a little bit just to reflect what you've added in. Like, for example, you can't take screenshots of your levels, in week 1, right? And if you notice here, down in the details here, if I go to my external document, screenshots are worth like 2 marks, right? So there's a mark for screenshots for different scenes, right? So please don't leave your screenshots out. I mean, I want them in. It's just that you can't do it first day. First day is all your concept, right? But by part 2, you're going to have some screenshots. You're going to have screenshots for your first level, right? How does your first level look? Right? You'll have screenshots for that. And then by part 3, you'll have screenshots for your second and third levels. So all you're doing is just updating your external document, and you're going to hand that in every single week, as an example, in a separate Dropbox. I made a separate Dropbox for each of your parts. So part 1 is going to have a drop, just like we did for assignment 3. Part 1 is going to have a zone. Part 2, part 3, part 4, and each one of those I want your external document, your GitHub link, your build. That's the most important thing. Your build, not a whole zip file of all your archives. I'm going to have like gigs and gigs of information up on eCentennial. Yeah. 1 submission per group. Just let me know who your members are, who your group members are, so that way, if I can't find who you're working with, you're going to get 0. right? That's a problem. So please, it's up to you to let me know. If you don't let me know who you're working with, then I'm going to assume you didn't hand in anything, right? So that's a really important piece. And that goes along with any one of the assignments we've been doing so far, assignment 3 and the final. You need to let me know who you're working with. If you make it hard for me to find out who it is, like, it should be part of your submission details. So when you submit something in eCentennial, it should be right there. I'm working with, you know, this person, whoever it is. I'm working with Mary. Mary and I are working together. I'm just making this up, right? You know, and give me the first name and last name. Say Mary. I don't know. Let's say her last name is Zhang. Mary Zhang and I are working together, right? As an example, right? As opposed to Mary, which Mary, right? Or don't give me first initial last names. Like, you know, I'm working with I Patel. How many Patels are there in the class, right? You know what I'm saying? I got to figure out which Patel, right? Come on, it's too much, right? It's like you guys have to be reasonable for me, right? And then I'll make sure that you guys get your marks, right? I'm not a hard marker. You'll see this, right? The only difference that the only thing I'm looking for is, have you submitted my requirements? It's all about the requirement. Everything I put on that document for you, that assignment document, that is your manifesto. I'm going to be using that thing. That's the thing you look at and go, okay, did I do this? Did I do this? Did I do this? Did I do this kind of well, or was it kind of crappy? If you did it kind of crappy, then you're probably going to lose half a mark. You know, if it's worth 2 marks and you kind of did it, but not the whole thing, it's like half a mark. It's like a mark. You might lose a mark. If you did it, but like the bare minimum, it's going to be like half a mark. If you didn't do it at all, it's going to be 0. Like, I mean, that's just the way it is, right? And then what if you really did a great job on that piece? Not only did you do it, but you outdid yourself. It was awesome. You'll get a bonus, right? So there's a bit of flexibility in terms of my marking scheme, but more or less what I ask you, if you give me what I ask you for, you're going to get 100%, right? That's how it goes. You know, so that's how I do my marking, and you'll see as we sit down together. So again, notice that, like I said, the first 3 weeks are on Fridays, but the last week is on the Wednesday, right? The last week is due Wednesday, and that means that you only have from Friday until Wednesday to finish up your game, right? That means you have your instruction scene and your game end scenes are due by the end, right? For the instruction scene, right, it's another scene. And some people ask me on COMP302 for their scene, can I make it part of the game? Like if I go to game level 1, can I have some information pop up, like text pop up throughout the level to tell me what to do? That's kind of like a tutorial. That's not an instruction. Instructions, a scene, I should be able to pop into it and say, this is how you play the game. I should be able to, I use this to jump and this to move my character, and this is my goal. Some people, I've had this happen in previous semesters, right? What they've done is they've done an instructions scene for every level. That's extra marks for them. I'm only asking for 1. General idea of how to play the game. But some people do like an instruction scene for level 1. This is the goal of the level. Here's what you have to do. Da 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 da. It comes up almost like as a transition scene. You press, you know, go as an example. You go to the first level. You start the first level. You do it gives you a little instruction screen, and then you start playing. Right? That's acceptable. So you may not be part of your menu, but it's incorporated as an additional scene every single level. That makes sense to me. And if it's easier for the player to play, that's good. So that's the stuff that I've seen in previous semesters, right? So again, those kind of the details at a high level. Let's bang into some of these details at a more detailed level here, right? So a menu scene, again, you need to have that with a play option, and instruction options, and an exit option, so you can exit your game. Remember that the thing you're going to be handing into me at the end is the build. I want the final build of your games, right? So you have to know how to build your game out, right? Please don't give me all of your files. I have that on GitHub. I can always look at your files on GitHub. I can always download your whole project if I want to on GitHub. Please do not give me all your files. If you give me all your files, it'll be like massive, like gigs of information, and it's just too much. It's going to take me gigs to download every single one of your projects. Even for assignment 3, please, it's not over yet. Please don't give me all of your project files. Give me your final build. It's just too much, right? So I can always download your final build right off of eCentennial and run it, and we're good to go, okay? Okay, so gameplay scenes, an instruction scene, gameplay scenes. Each gameplay scene have to have, like it says, each game level must appear and function differently than the other game levels and have its own goal, all right? That's a little differently than what I've asked in the past, right? Game over scene, you should have an option to play again or to exit to the menu. So I'm going to exit to the menu because I don't want to play again. Maybe I want to get an instruction screen. Maybe I want to see credits. Maybe whatever, right? Player control of an avatar. How do I control? Remember, this is single player only, no multiplayer. Computer control of AI for the enemies. Sometimes it's enough just to make pit traps. Like, it doesn't have to be enemies, even in your final project. I mean, no one says you have to make a shooter. I'm not asking you to make a shooter game. I've shown you how to make a shooter, but it's not required. What you can totally do instead of making a shooter is make some kind of obstacle course. Every level is a different kind of obstacle course. Make it interesting, but you don't have to shoot enemies, right? The enemies have to be smart to follow you and try and touch you, maybe almost like a game of tag, right? But they don't have to shoot at you or eat you or anything like that. It doesn't have to be a violent game, right? So don't think it has to be. Scoring system, of course, we've talked about before with a life counter and health status. You can also have a health bar. Some people like to do a health bar that floats above your head when you walk around. Some kind of health bar or some kind of other way of making your game go. So that's a scoring system. Sound effects are required. So for collecting points, shooting attacks, hitting enemies, collisions, explosions, all that stuff, you have to have some kind of audio feedback from all those things, right? One thing I want to talk about this semester that I didn't have a chance to do last semester is talk about mixing audio, right? Because audio mixers, there's some interesting things you can do. Sometimes the audio is overpowering, right, from one particular effect to another, and we can reduce some of that so that it's not so bad. You can change the levels, the audio levels, and we'll talk about maybe audio mixing for this semester, as well as how to make particle effects, to help you out, like things like, I want to make smoke. How do I make a smoke particle effect, right? So can I make it more interesting, or fire, those kind of things, basic particle effects. How do I do those things? Game soundtrack is required. It's not an option for this one, right? So game soundtrack and audio effects for your final project is required, right? Internal documentation, I can't tell you enough how many people miss these 5 marks. They just don't document anything. They just, put the bare minimum. They don't put their name. Look what I've asked you to do. Put your name in the header, your author's name, last modified by date. Do what I'm asking you to do here. I can't tell you, so many people lose marks on this one. It's crazy. It's 2 marks just to do this. And I mean, if you think about how many marks I'm giving you, 72 marks, that's 2 out of 72. And 72 marks, we're talking about 72 marking points, if you will, right, for your for this particular thing. So please don't forget to put internal documentation. And header for all your programs. Your program uses contextual variable names. I've seen like X's and Y's for really weird, like for loops. For X is equal to 0, right? Why? For I, that's the good one. For I is equal to, is a number is equal to 0. I is less than count. Sorry, even more. I is less than J. I plus plus, right? It's crazy. Please don't do that. Make sure that they're contextual and human readable. And those things. I mean, I didn't really talk about this too much this semester because, I really didn't think we have to do that. But for sure, this is required, right? General documentation, again, like I said, you're going to be updating this every single time you make a submission. So it's almost like I want 4 different external documents from you, right? Your first one, which is your draft, and then every single time you submit your project, I want an update. All you're doing is taking the same document and updating it for me, right, with your changes. If I go back, if I look at your external documents exact same from one version to the other, you'll lose marks. They'll be like, so I'll sit there and go like, so they haven't updated so they originally had the wireframe, but they haven't had any screenshots, so you lost that piece, right? Like, it's all part of the marking scheme that we're using, right? Share your files on GitHub. Now, this is a little different than in COMP392. In COMP392, I said, there's share your files on GitHub and put it up on a website because it's a web-based program, right? Even COMP397 is going to be the same when we do COMP397. But here, we're not going to share this on the cloud anywhere, right? You're not going to deploy this to WebGL, although you could, right? You could actually deploy this as one of your build targets to WebGL and wrap it in, and play it inside any non-Chrome browser, right? Because Chrome won't support it anymore. Like the Unity wrapper won't work in Chrome. Security stops it, right? But it'll work in other browsers like Firefox or whatever, right? But we don't have that requirement here. There is no, you're not deploying this thing to Azure or anything like that. But one thing I am putting in here is part C, which is a little different than the other ones, is ensure that each member of your team contributes equally to GitHub, right? That is 2 marks that you'll lose if you don't do that. And also, I'm going to use this to rebalance some of the marks. For example, if I have one person and all I see is them contributing, And when I have a conversation, when I have an interview with your team and I find out what you've done, and if you've done less, you're going to get less marks. I'll give the other person more marks and you less marks, right? Because everyone has to contribute to this thing. This isn't an opportunity for you to not work in a group. This is an opportunity for you to both work in the group to make better stuff, right? To have more fun, lighten the load a little bit, right? So it's not as crazy, this project. I want to make this project as fun as it can be, right? I don't want this project to be like, oh my God, Tom gave us these crazy projects and they're both due at the same time and I can't finish any one of them because they're just so big. No. Combine your forces with somebody. Guys, I know some people have a lot of pride. They're like, I don't work with anybody, right? I've heard that from some students before because I hate working in teams. And if I have an option not to work with the team, then I won't. Okay, fine, I love it. I get it. You like working solo. But guys, it's a big detriment to do this project without somebody else. You'll be bogged down. There's just so much going on. And these next few weeks, you're gonna get projects and assignments and exams from everybody, right? So it'll be too much. Please, please, I'm asking you, just make it easy on yourself. Don't worry about your pride. Combine with somebody else and make something that you can be proud of, right? That's my recommendation. Of course, there's always optional game features, and this is no exception. Making a final boss monster for your last level, adding some power-ups, same kind of ideas that we talked about for COMP302. And your submission details, again, I talked about an external document, a link to your project on GitHub, and a zip file of your project files. But when I mean this, what I really mean is of your build, a zip archive of your final project build, not your project files, like all the details. Your final project build. Please just get that done, right? I should probably put this in for future generations. Project build files, right? Not your project, like not thousands of or 1 gigabyte of information. I don't need that. I want to just run the game and see how it works and play it, right? Yeah. Yes, please, please. You make it so that I can play the game and it's easy for me to download it from eCentennial, right? So that I'm going to download it. Like this is one that I'm not going to just download your link. Your GitHub link, I'm going to look at your code. I'm going to take a look and see what it looks like. What's your structure? Show me your code files on GitHub. If I really have a problem, GitHub is a great backup. I can always download your GitHub stuff and rerun rebuild your project or whatever. Worst case scenario, right? So I could do that. Some people also put their external document up on GitHub. I don't recommend that. Put it in eCentennial so I can find it. Like don't put it in GitHub unless you really want to put it as a backup. Like you put your external document, you embed your external document somewhere in your assets. But I don't recommend it, right? All right, any questions around this thing? I know I spoke a lot about final projects, but really what I want to do with this final project here is give you an opportunity to make something cool, and so it's not going to bog you down too much by combining with somebody else. Any questions around it? I know some people are kind of remote and they're watching this video right now or the broadcast. That's okay. Come up with some questions for next week, or maybe text a friend that's here in the class, right? To see if they can ask me the questions that you want to ask me, right? Again, I'm pretty flexible with this stuff. The dates are not flexible. This is where we're not going to be flexible. So if you try and say, please extend me from one date to the other, there's no extensions. Not on last assignment, not on this assignment. And the reason for that is because if you look at this stuff, every week you're delivering something, right? So I extend you, marks aren't going to happen. I don't want that. I cannot afford it because I'm flying the last week of semester. So I want to make sure everyone gets their marks and everyone's satisfied with what's happening. So please, let's stick to the schedule. Right now, here's one thing I'd like to say, and I said it in COMP302. What if you want to finish early? What if you're, really a good go-getter? You and your team members are really chomping at the bit, and you want to finish your 3 levels ahead of time? Sure. Make sure you submit everything in their proper places in each of the drop boxes. You have 4 drop boxes to submit stuff. If you submit everything where they belong, fine. Finish early and see you next semester. Right? I'm not going to force you to be in class, right, over the next few weeks. But I will enforce the minimum due date, which is what I have here, right? But if you want to finish early, if you want to get by week 12, you have everything done, and you've submitted everything. Okay, great, fantastic. You don't have to come. You don't have to do anything else, right? And that might work for you because sometimes what happens is you may want to finish because you have a free weekend. You want to work with your partner and just finish the game. Do it, right? I don't mind doing that. It's okay to be early, right? It's bad to be late. Always bad to be late. Late is bad because then, you know, it's going to cause a big storm of stuff, of activity. And each of these things, by the way, and same thing for COMP392, each of these, if they're due Friday, that means you have until the Monday to submit at the very latest. After Monday, project is closed. You won't be able to submit after the Monday. And for the last one, for the Wednesday, Friday, whatever happens, project is closed. You won't be able to submit on a Saturday or Sunday. It's done, right? So please, let's not be late on this one. Let's get it all done. I know people are inundated with stuff, but I'm giving you way, like, you know, kind of like, you know, notification way early. Like we're talking week 10, I'm talking about week 14 already. It's like 4 weeks out. And you know when your things are due, please get it done, and you're going to be very successful, right? Any other questions before I stop this one? Okay, one thing I'd like to try and do is maybe load up a past submission, so to show you a couple of examples before we get into work for today. So I'm going to open up a new project, and I'm going to see some of the projects that I have in my scene. So I kind of click open here. And under my courses, what I try and do every single semester is try and get some, you know, submissions from different people. Did I actually do it? I didn't even do it last semester. I don't have it here. I have it at home. But what I like to do is try and give you some examples of people's work from last semester, and I have a ton of them, like from last semester. They're really, really cool. A lot of them are based off, I'll be honest with you, a lot of them are based off of the platformer. A lot of people did a platformer as their main game last semester, just the way it worked out, right? There's only a handful of assignment 3s that I saw, right? So not very many people use assignment 3 as their kickoff point, right? Most people did some assignment 2 work, and they kicked off, they did a platformer. Some people did, and I'm talking about from a ratio perspective, I would say that, I don't know, most people did some kind of platformer, right? That would be, when I say most, I mean like 50%. 50, 60% of people last semester did some kind of kickoff from a platform, right? The other 30%, right? 30% of those people did, you know, like a first-person shooter or third-person perspective game, right? And then only 10% did the first, you know, scrolling game that they did, like, you know, first level, second level, third level. So the first assignment 1, and by the way, in terms of how good they were, assignment 1 was the best assignment everyone handed in, but that was the least used one for the final project. I don't know. I'm just saying, right? Assignment 2 was a little bit worse than assignment 1, but it was the most used one for the final project. And assignment 3 was the worst one that everyone handed in, right? But it was like the second most useful one, second one that everyone used for their final project. Just the way it worked out. Right? So I don't know why the statistics are like that, but I had 2 sections last semester, and they were exactly the same, well, from both sections, more or less the distribution of work. All right, let's take a short break, and when we get back, I want to finish off scoring and kind of respawning my player object, right? I want to try and talk about that, and we'll talk about some simple enemy AI. How do I do simple enemy AI? How do my enemies follow me around, and all that kind of stuff? Very simply, how do I you know, create some obstacles or some kind of, you know, some kind of danger for myself, you know, to pass over or pass under, you know, those kind of things, so I can make my game more interesting.